Hey, Pastor Steve Waldron, thankful you're here. We're in our living room because of my fractured ankle. Thanks for joining us. Sister Waldron set it up great. Not my ankle, even though she's done a great job with that too, but the studio here. We're going to be looking about my thoughts about modern Bible translations. If you watch the channel for any length of time, you know that I'm a big King James Version guy. And so what would I think about modern Bible versions? And so what I think may surprise some of you, but I'm going to try to explain why. So again, I just want to say thanks for being here. Do hit the bell notification when you subscribe, and do check out our other videos and playlists. Join us daily here if you can. So modern Bible translations, I don't think, for the most part, that people who translate on these things are nefarious Satan worshipers trying to change the Bible. I don't think that they're people with any animus or ill will. I think they are mistaken in many cases because they're thinking that modern textual criticism, which I've done several videos on that if you want to check those out, is a proper way to go, not really realizing the implications, meaning that we really didn't have a sufficient or a perfect Bible at any time in human history, but we're still discovering the Bible, and it's kind of an evolutionary process. But I don't look at it that way. It's not taught that way in their seminaries, and really they just don't ever put the whole paradigm together in many cases. Some do. So I don't think that. Now, there were times like when the Revised Standard came out, the reason so many people didn't like that is because if you looked at their translators, they did tend to have some socialistic, communistic influences, and there were actually books written on the bibliographies and biographies of these particular individuals. There were the National Council of Churches and the liberalism that pervaded that. But for the most part, I would say, especially in evangelical Bible versions, these are not just the New King James, ESV, these were not just evil people seeking to destroy people's faith in the Word of God. I think it was an honest-hearted attempt to make 400-year-old language into modern understanding. And maybe they felt that they knew Hebrew or Greek better than the King James translators, which if you really do a history of the King James translators, that would be a tall, if not impossible order to do. I've done many videos on that as well, if you care to watch them, on why that is historically. So I don't think that. I also don't think somebody's going to go to hell just because they read a modern Bible translation. When I first got saved, I was at Bible school, but I didn't know a lot of the Bible stories. So at night, I would read these Bible story books like, who was it? Hurlbut, Ergemeyer, I can't think of the different ones, and just learn like what was Daniel in the lion's den about. And so I think people who read modern versions, you can read them to elucidate and get understanding of what the overall Bible story is about. I certainly think somebody can be saved reading a modern version of the Bible. Now, all of that being said, it doesn't negate the need for a perfect Bible or a word-for-word Bible or a Bible that you can hold in your hand and say, here is the Word of God, or a standard. I mean, Jesus is saying his words, jots, tittles, Paul's emphasizing a letter for doctrine, one letter, seed as of one, not seeds. And so just because it was known in Jewish parlance as targums, just because there's paraphrases, and preachers do it all the time. They don't quote verbatim scriptures many times. Robert Baer does, but many don't. Johnny James did, but many don't. And so they just give you the gist. It's the overall message. And so there's an overall message aspect, and then there is an every word doctrinal theological aspect that you've got there. And so you really need that. And I would say that in the English language, King James Version would be it, especially the 1769 Second Folio edition, Benjamin Blaney edition. Gail Riplinger's done a lot of good stuff. A lot of you dismiss her scholarship based on things you see and videos you see and books you've read, and not her books. You need to read her books, see what she says, especially on that issue of which particular edition of the King James seems to be the most accurate. She's absolutely really good on that and has done the legwork. And she is a college professor. A lot of people say, well, she's in Home Ec. She's written college textbooks. Anyhow, but not just her. Many people have. Pete Ruckman, D.A. Waite, David Cloud, just the list, Hills, just on and so forth. Holland, Strauss, and on, De Vitro. But anyhow, so I would say that that's it in the King James Version. And, I only read the King James Version. I only use the King James Version like to preach from and to teach from, because I don't want to confuse people. And I don't want people to think these other translations have equal validity with King James Version of the Bible. So that's my views of modern versions. I think they come from a corrupt root system of Westcott and Hort, and even before that, of Simons and others in modern textual biblical criticism, Richard Simon. And I just don't think they're good in that aspect. But, you hand somebody that, and could they understand who Jesus is? Would they get yes, of course they would. And so it's better to have that than nothing, obviously. So I hope that clarifies some things. And I know we would have to take each one of these points and flesh them out, because anybody could take issue with any one of these points from any direction. But I would highly recommend, before you comment, you may want to watch. We've done well over 5,000 videos, a few dozen of the videos I've done on Bible translations, to at least see where I'm coming from, because it does get beyond tedious sometimes, and I hate that, to just re-answer the same questions over and over and over. And I'm like, well, if they just watch this video. And I understand nobody who's got time to do all that. Trust me, I understand that. So God bless. We love you. Be with us daily, and just read that Bible. Live it. It's going to judge us. Bye-bye.